May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. Except for hermits and social outcasts, I would think that most people enjoy a party. Not everyone enjoys the same kind of party, however, but there are different parties. This past August, Gwen and I were invited to a wedding out on Shelter Island, that island in Peconic Bay between the North and the South Forks. We drove out to South Hold, the North Fork, and then took the ferry over to Shelter Island. I drove about 15 minutes to find the place where the wedding was being held, parked the car, walked through a house, and then down a gently sloping lawn toward the water. Chairs were set up down there in an area where the exchange of vows would take place. It was lovely. And after the actual wedding, we began walking back to the house, maybe 2/3 of the way. And there, outside, were the tables. They weren't round as we're normally used to. They were long tables, back to back, so that there were 3 long end-to-end series of tables. And there were chairs on either side of these tables. There was soft music playing. It was a pleasure. I could turn to Gwen. We could talk. I could hear her. We could talk to our new friends on the other side of the table. There wasn't anything blaring that would prevent us from hearing. That didn't mean they didn't have a band. They had a band, but it was up in the house in a fairly large room. And that's where they would play, and that's where people would go to dance if they wanted to. But if you didn't want to, you could stay outside. It was great. I find it very distressful to go to a party where the music is so loud, where the DJ has turned the gain up to the point of breaking your eardrums, because you can't hear anything but the music. You can't talk to your neighbor. I'll often find a reason to leave the room and wander to the men's room, and then wander around the place for a while before I come back in, just to make the time stretch out. Some parties we like, some we don't. So that gets us to the question today: did Jesus like parties? We normally think of Jesus as a serious person, someone who's talking about God, someone who's talking about going up to Jerusalem where he will be killed. But nevertheless, I think that Jesus had a sense of humor. We see hints of that. It's not very blatant because it's not relevant to the good news. But nevertheless, he certainly enjoyed parties, getting together with people. In the beginning of the Gospel of John, the first miracle that he performs is at a wedding. He, his disciples, and his mother are invited to this wedding. And there comes a point where his mother comes to him and she says, "They've run out of wine." And he says, "What's that got to do with me?" Anyway, she tells the servants just to do what he tells you. Running out of wine at a wedding would be similar to running out of liquor and wine at one of our weddings. It would be an embarrassment. and things would begin to fall flat. Because people enjoy having some kind of spirit that they can drink. For some reason, whoever set up this wedding, and in those days, weddings went on for days, not just for 4 hours. They miscalculated. Anyway, Jesus goes and tells the servants to fill up the 6 jars of, that's normally there for water for purification, for purifying the hands. And they do. And then he says, take a cup to the steward. And he's amazed. He says, you know, most people serve the best wine first, but you have saved it to last. Undoubtedly, Jesus enjoyed the wedding. We read of him going to homes of Pharisees, as well as to Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. We read about him getting together with the outcasts, with prostitutes, with tax collectors. He eats with them. Undoubtedly talks to them about the kingdom. He probably has some good laughs. But he is also accused of being someone who likes too much wine by the Pharisees. He wants to celebrate the Passover with his disciples. And so they prepare that, and there's always a lot of wine flowing at the Passover meal. And he says, I won't drink this again until I drink it with you in the kingdom of heaven. That being said, he also tells a story, a parable about the kingdom of heaven being like a king who invites people to a special party. His son is going to be married. And so he invites all of the people who should be there. And he prepares the meal. And when everything is set, he sends out his slaves to tell the people, come, everything's ready. But they're not interested. They don't come. And so he sends out other slaves. Tell them, the wild beast is roasted, the calves are slaughtered, and the meal is ready. Tell them to come. And you see, these are the people you want at your party. These are the money people, the CEOs of corporations. These are the movie stars with gowns slid up to here and down to there. They wear their furs. These are the people who come in the Rolls Royces, you see. Come, my son is being married. Join in the festivities. But they didn't. Oh, I've got to run over to the Mediterranean. I've got something going on there. Another one says, no, I got tickets to a play. And there are all kinds of excuses that these people have. And finally, when they chase some of the slaves away, others are killed. The king is outraged. He can't believe what has happened. And he gets so furious that he doesn't simply check these people off the list as not coming, but he sends his own people out and destroys them entirely. They think that they can come anytime they want to the king, and he's going to be receptive to them. They think they can come on their own terms, but they can't. T.S. Eliot draws a picture of the church during industrialized England that is still relevant today. I want to read a couple of verses here. I journeyed to London to the time-kept city where the river flows with foreign flotations. There I was told, we have too many churches and too few chop houses. There I was told, let the vicars retire. Men do not need the church in the place where they work, but where they spend their Sundays. In the city, we need no bells. Let them waken the suburbs. I journeyed to the suburbs, and there I was told, we toil for 6 days, and on the 7th day, we must motor to Hindhead or Maidenhead. If the weather is foul, we stay at home and read the papers. In industrial districts, there I was told of economic laws. In the pleasant countryside, there it seemed that the country now is only fit for picnics, and the church does not seem to be wanted. Country, or in suburbs, and in the town, only for important weddings. But it's not going to be the case, you see. The church is there for more than important weddings. God is not there for the pleasure of people. He is there to invite them to a wedding. And so he says to his slaves, the wedding feast is ready. I need people. Go out into the streets. Invite everyone that you see. Tell them to come to my son's wedding because it's all prepared. And so they do, and the people come. And Robert Capon says, you know, it seems as we read this that the king decided to spend even more money and buy everyone a wedding outfit so that there would be splendor wherever he would turn. And so the woman who would beg at the front gate now looks like a princess, decked out in the finest robe and jewelry. A laborer finds himself in a tuxedo, and he'll never look better. And the king comes in, and he's very pleased that he looks around, but then he sees someone who does not have a wedding garment on. And he goes up to the man and he says, why don't you have a wedding garment? How did you get in without that? But the man doesn't say boo. He doesn't say a word. Tell me, why are you here? Why don't you have a wedding garment? But there's nothing. You see, he's trying to get the man to relate to him. No matter what he would have said, would have been fine. He could have said, you know, I'm not crazy about these monkey suits to get everybody decked in. And I don't like the loud noise of these parties. The king could have said, all right, look, follow me. There's a very quiet place in the corner. I'll bring the best bottle of wine I've got, and you and I will sit and have a drink, and we'll get to know each other. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't do anything. He refuses to relate to the king. And so he has his servants throw him out into the outer darkness. You see, at the end, there's only one party. At the end, there aren't multiple choices. I would say 12 years ago, Gwen and I were out visiting my cousin in Vienna, and her husband took us over to Budapest in Hungary. And we spent the night there into Sunday. And Sunday morning, we went out looking for a diner so that we could have some breakfast. Here, you know, you have diners all over. But anyway, we get out into the street that we're going, we're looking at the stores, everything is closed. Restaurants might open up in the middle of the afternoon, but no place to eat breakfast. And we walked for a bunch of blocks. And finally we saw some lights and another block further, and we walked, and there was a McDonald's. And I said, you know, I really don't want to have breakfast at McDonald's. The last time I had breakfast at McDonald's, I had a stomachache the whole day. But we had no choice if we wanted to eat. So we said, all right, look, we're just going to get a bun. And we went into the McDonald's, and our mouths dropped because they had chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. They had seats that were comfortable and all over the place, like a restaurant. And you could go up front, and there was a showcase of pastries, 3 and 4 levels deep, each one mouth-watering. You wanted to take a bite of each one and then take the rest home. We ordered breakfast, and it was brought to us at the booth we were in. It was beautiful. It was delicious. It was the only place we could eat, but we didn't need any other place because it was perfect. The party that God's going to throw, and he, of course, is the king in this parable. It's the only party that's going to be available, you see. There isn't anything else. And it doesn't matter who the people are. You know, the slaves went out into the streets and they told both good and bad to come. It has nothing to do with your goodness or your badness. It has to do with, do you want to relate to God? And that's what he wants. There is no other place. And if you say, well, I don't want to, and you say, oh, then you're saying to yourself, all right, I'm going to be on the outs. Like the elder brother in the parable of the prodigal son. You say, I'm going to absent myself. But there's no other place to go. The kingdom of heaven is like a wedding banquet that the king is throwing for his son. Come, enjoy. It's going to be fabulous. Amen. The peace of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Our next hymn is 430.